you the quantum mechanics?
We are the Quantum Mechanics, the paranormal podcast for the believers, the doubters, and everybody in between.
We nearly weren't we?
We nearly weren't.
So we're recording this, we're recording slightly out of sync because we're doing a live thing tonight. But it is technically, as we record, the day after Halloween.
It is.
Do you watch any Halloween movies?
Not yet, no. Last night I was deep in planning the show. And then when I came back home from the pub where I was doing the planning, we had loads of trick-or-treaters.
Oh, did you? Well, we put a big bowl out of stuff. And I went to pick up my son who'd gone trick-or-treating elsewhere. When I left, the bowl was like completely full. When I came back, it was empty. And I really wish I'd put some kind of camera on it just to see how it went. Was it just people, gradually just dipping in, or was it a full raid of the whole bowl? I'd love to know.
I must say the kids this year paid a lot of effort to their costumes. I saw 2 Princess Fionas.
Oh, nice.
I saw a Beetlejuice, a baby Beetlejuice. Lots of Captain Sparrows, and a really good mummy. The trouble was we had a little bit of rain last night, and I think the mummy was mainly loo roll. So
it was a disintegrating mummy.
I think so. After I'd seen him or her, there was quite a heavy rainstorm, so much so that I had to get the dog in. And yeah, I think they probably would have seen how strong, long, and disintegratable their costume was.
There's a thing here in the village we live in where it's really cool. They've got like 30 houses who all do little Halloween displays. And it's a quiz, and they give you a map, and you just walk around the whole village filling it in.
Nice.
Yeah, and then you vote for your favourite display, I guess you call it.
I see up the road you've got some people who've turned skeletons and pumpkins into a road workers type of thing. That's quite fun.
There's a good grue with minions with pumpkins that have been painted yellow, which I really like.
It's really sad that we won't see it again till next year because, like Christmas, there's a huge build-up and then there's a bit of an aftermath. The pumpkins are pie by lunchtime.
The pumpkins are pie by lunchtime.
They are.
Quite. Any Halloween movies for you this year?
No. I will probably watch something maybe tomorrow. We did go and see the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra playing themes from famous horror movies, though.
Oh, nice. That's good.
We went there to see them in the Albert Hall. That was pretty extraordinary. I think the most terrifying of all of them was Jaws.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, Jaws done on a full orchestra. It was amazing.
It's funny. I did hear a story that when Spielberg, is it John Williams? I think did the Jaws music. When he played it to Spielberg thought it was a joke. He said, yeah, okay, very funny. Now, what's the music like? And he went, no, this is it.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
And it's become completely iconic.
Yeah, incredible.
It's as iconic as the Psycho with that sort of that violin. Yeah. As soon as they played the Jaws music, everyone was like, not having a bath this evening.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, should we get into the episode, Ben?
Let us get into the episode.
So I mentioned a couple of weeks ago on the Extra Scoop that I'd written an intro before I'd kind of done all the research, because I often do that just to see, is this going to be something that's going to be interesting or not? And I realised I'd written the most incredible Alan Partridge introduction for this episode. So I thought rather than ditch it, shall I just read it and you can tell me where it rates on the Partridge scale? Maybe I'm being too tough on myself.
Okay, is this just a general intro or is it random facts?
No, this is just a general intro.
Oh, okay.
So I've written, the focus of this week's podcast, Ben, is All Saints. Not the late 90s pop group or the Britain fashion retailer, but those the Catholic Church has deemed worthy of sainthood. Where would you rank that on the Partridge scale?
I give you 3 bags and tie sets out of 5.
It's pretty Partridge-esque, isn't it? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, saints. Now, in the Catholic Church, there is a strict criteria to becoming a saint. There are key stages in the process of canonisation that can eventually lead to sainthood. Firstly, which is a bit of a tough one if you want to become a saint, you have to be dead for at least 5 years before the process begins. Yeah, not so
That's
great.
so disappointing.
Then local bishops investigate the candidate's life, their writings and reputation for holiness. If there are no objections, a case is opened and the candidate is given the title of Servant of God. The next phase involves review by the Vatican. A formal declaration of heroic virtue or martyrdom is required. If all the criteria is met, the candidate is declared venerable and moves to the next stage. The next stage is known as blessed or beatification. Typically requires a verified miracle, though it's not always required. If it's concluded, the candidate's martyrdom will suffice. Martyrdom, I should say, not to martyrdom.
To martyrdom, right. Yes.
So at this point, the candidate is deemed blessed, and we move to the saint or canonization phase. For this final stage, a second miracle is usually required. Although, once again, martyrs can skip this stage if they want. Well,
Pass on the second miracle.
yeah. If they get through all that, the candidate has made it this far and the Pope will canonise and they become a saint.
Cool. I mean, when I was a kid, you say canonise and I know what it means, but all I could think of was cannons. And as a kid, again, I misinterpreted it. And every time I went to a castle where they had cannons, I did think that's probably where they do the canonizations then.
Yeah, like, they fire a saint out of it.
Yeah. Because there was, back when we were kids, wasn't one of the main features of any sort of circus or magic trick somebody being jettisoned out of a cannon?
Yeah. Oh, well, that's not part of the canonisation process, I can
How
inform you.
disappointing.
Now, I bring all that up, not because I was interested in what the process was, but because of the mention of miracles. That's why I'm bringing it up in terms of the podcast. And it's because I'm struggling to think of any official process still being used today where something that we could regard as proof of the paranormal, in this case a miracle, are not just mentioned, but are listed as a requirement.
That's true,
I
actually.
can't think of, I'm sure there are things out there that I've not thought of, but it just really struck me. And it's the miracles that those who have been made saints that I want to look at today. But first, Ben, you know what time it might be.
Is it random fact time?
It's time for some random facts about saints. Now, there are no official count of how many Catholic saints there have been, but it's estimated to be around 10,000.
No, really?
That's a lot of saints, but I guess it's been
I thought
going
it was
a
like
few thousand
20.
years. No, 10,000.
10,000, okay.
Now, I don't know about you, I tend to think of saints connected to something like a cause, like St. Christopher being the patron saint of travel.
Yeah.
Now, not all saints are a patron saint, but there are some quite strange ones out there, which I found, including St. Lawrence, the patron saint of comedians and cooks.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
How did he earn that then?
I'm not quite sure how he...
Was he good with his one-liners or
Yeah,
something?
he was probably good with his one-liners and he made a hell of a spag bol, I reckon. Obviously not a hell of a spag bol, a good spag bol.
Wow, that's incredible. Cooking and comedians. Okay.
Saint Apollonia, who is the patron saint of dentists and those with dental problems. I think this was because her suffering or his... I'm not quite sure if Apollonia... I'm assuming it's a female saint, but I don't know. I think it was because of the severe pain that they had in their teeth, almost as a way of, I don't know, penance.
Right, okay.
This is my favourite. St. Drogo, patron saint of coffee houses and shepherds.
What? Okay. I mean, this is really weird. So, what could be the association with coffee?
I thought maybe St. Drogo's miracle was getting a flat white for under £3.
Yeah.
That would be saintly, wouldn't it? That is a miracle.
Yeah. All of them are more expensive than our Patreon at patreon.com/TQMpod.
I'd set you up for that, didn't I?
That's interesting. So shepherding and coffee. Okay.
Yeah. The time frame to becoming a saint varies widely. A short time would be decades, but for some, it has taken hundreds of years. So I guess they never really knew anyway, because they'd be dead for 5 years at least. But it's taken
none of them
hundreds. There you go, Ben. They are my random facts for the day.
Well, they were very good.
Well, let's focus on some people who have achieved the status of a Catholic saint and the miracles associated with them. I want to focus more on modern day saints rather than go too historical. If we go like way back, the scope is just too wide. And there's something about the more modern ones, more credible stories recorded. Do you know what I mean? The older saints have got these incredible things, but yeah, who knows? Now, we can't take a look at this topic without talking about someone we've mentioned on the podcast before, Padre Pio.
Oh, yeah. The bilocating fella.
Yeah, he's got the lot. I'm going to come on to that. But he was born Francesco Forgione in Italy in 1887.
Quattro Formaggio.
And he died in 1968. Now, he took the name Pio as his religious name. He was canonised by Pope John Paul II in 2002. In terms of miracles or things that could be classed as paranormal, I would say if you're playing sainthood top trumps, Pio would be the best card in the pack. His miracles include miraculous healing, levitation, very famous for the stigmata, bilocation, and miracles witnessed and experienced by his congregation during Mass and prayers. As they say, he's got the lot.
It's a real fine line when you're talking, say, levitation, between demonic sort of possession or interference and I would say divine intervention. Because if you start levitating, I mean, that's a trope of horror movies, isn't it? Even in Ghostbusters, Dana rises off the bed.
Yeah.
So I guess you have to go through a process where you're like, no, this is God lifting me up. This isn't a demon.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, let's go deeper into some reported examples of Pio. I've been delving in the Vatican archives again. I love the Vatican archives.
I wondered why your knees were dusty.
Yeah. So it has details about Pio's process to becoming a saint. Now, there are a lot of documents in there about his virtues and devotion to God, how he worked to relieve suffering and help those in need. All of that you'd expect from a saint, right? But there are also documents in the Vatican archive that directly relate to miracles and the paranormal, including this one, which says, on the 20th of February 1971, barely 3 years after the death of Padre Pio, Pope Paul VI, speaking to the superiors of the Capuchin order, said of him, "Look what fame he had, what a worldwide following gathered around him. But why? Perhaps because he was a philosopher, because he was wise, because he had resources at his disposal, because he said Mass humbly, heard confessions from dawn to dusk, and was, it is not easy to say it, one who bore the wounds of our Lord. He was a man of prayer and suffering." So there we have a direct reference from the then Pope. Something about that wording, I thought somewhat reluctantly, to the stigmata that Padre Pio displayed multiple times in his life, including during services. You know, if we take that quote, it is not easy to say it, one who bore the wounds of our Lord. It's almost like he didn't want to admit to the stigmata, but he's kind of has.
Well, I guess also as well, there's an element there of like he would feel sadness that this has happened to Jesus as well. It's hard to interpret that sense.
Yeah, you're true. You're true.
It could go either way, but then I suppose then there's a third layer which could be interpreted as he doesn't feel worthy, which is probably where you were coming from. Like, this happened to Jesus, and we know what the Catholic Church feels about.
I was reading it a different way. It's interesting, isn't it, how you can have your own interpretations. I kind of felt, and I've got no idea because, I can't get into the person who said it's brain, but I felt it was more, I don't want to admit to this paranormal thing.
Yeah.
But, you could be right as well. There's also another reference in the official document of his canonization process that says, in the years following his death, his reputation for sanctity and miracles grew steadily and became established in the church all over the world and among all kinds of people. There's a bit there about miracles. His sanctity and miracles grew steadily. There's also a document in the Vatican archives titled Canonization of Saint Pio of Pietrelcina, Capuchin priest. I hope I'm saying that right. Capuchin, I think I am. This is the address of John Paul II. So this was on Monday, the 17th of June, 2002. So the document is a transcript of the words spoken by Pope John Paul II at the canonization of Padre Pio in 2002. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the then Pope did refer to the miracles of stigmata displayed by Pio, as did the previous Pope. In his quote, Pope John Paul II says of Pio, "What is the secret of such great admiration and love for this new saint? He is first of all a friar of the people, a traditional characteristic of the Capuchins. He is also a saint who is a miraculous healer, as the extraordinary events which are part of his life attest. However, above all, Padre Pio is a religious who is deeply in love with the crucified Christ. He even shared physically in the mysteries of the cross during his lifetime." So again, there's two popes who refer directly to Pio's miracles and specifically to him displaying the stigmata. Fascinating. These are all official documents.
Yeah, it is fascinating, as you say, that they see it that way because thinking about it, exhibiting the stigmata could also be interpreted as terribly blasphemous.
Right, yeah.
One thing I would like to know from the science perspective is whether they are anatomically correct to how the Romans would have actually crucified somebody, or whether they are correct to the sort of romantic or romanticized images of Jesus, which are largely not exactly as they would have done it.
Because my understanding of that is crucifixion would take place through the wrists, not the hands.
Correct.
But Pio, from the photos that I've seen, it's displayed on the hands.
Yeah, and so that's the commonly regarded image through paintings and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, again, the scientific part of my brain would say, I wonder whether this is not self-induced by means of an instrument, but self-induced by the power of the mind willing these wounds to happen, much like you can convince somebody to be cured of a disease, and we've had many instances of that.
I guess a counter to that, and I'm not saying it's right, but I think Pio often displayed the stigmata in front of his congregation. So if that's the case, maybe you go with the image that most people would expect if it was a miracle. Do you know what I mean? Rather than technically correct. I don't know. That's just one thought.
Yeah.
Well, let's have a look at some of the miracles that contributed to Padre Pio becoming a saint. Let's start with the Calandra family, who went on to create the National Centre for Padre Pio in the United States. They set up the centre not just because they believed, in the good and holiness of Pio, but because they were personally touched by something that has been referred to as a miracle. In April of 1966, Vera and Harry Calandra were thrilled to welcome their fifth child to the world. This is from their website. But Vera Maria was born with congenital defects of the urinary tract, which ultimately gave her a death sentence before the completion of her first year of life. After all medical hope had been given up, the Calandras relied more heavily on their faith. After being introduced to the life of Padre Pio through reading a book, Vera Maria's mother began to experience signs that her prayers were being heard. Padre Pio began making his presence known to her, first through the fragrance of roses, and then by distinct locution, so voices. "Bring your little girl here to me in Italy and do not delay, come immediately," she heard him say. Encouraged by her husband, Harry, she obediently listened to Padre Pio's call. With her oldest child, Michael, newborn Christina, and now 2-year-old Vera Maria, in tow, she travelled to San Giovanni Rotondo, Italy, to meet the priest who worked miracles. The young mother was granted 2 audiences with Pio, where he blessed her and children, placing his sore wounded hands on their head. While in the presence of the future saint, Vera Maria's mother kissed his hand and spoke to him through her heart. Please God, make a miracle so that all the people will believe. She made a silent promise to Almighty God that if her daughter were to live, the whole world would know the greatness of Padre Pio. Vera's prayers were answered. Upon returning to the United States with Vera Maria, her doctors discovered a rudimentary bladder growing in place of the one that had been previously removed. Vera Maria's health improved greatly, her prognosis was strong, and her mother kept the promise she made to God in Italy. The Calandras devoted their lives to bringing souls to God through the intersection of Padre Pio, eventually founding the National Centre for Padre Pio in 1971. Today, Vera Maria serves as the centre's assistant manager and vice president, so she made it to a ripe old age, working alongside 2 of her sisters and several of her nieces and nephews to lead the centre into a future of growth. This story, an interview with Vera Maria, the recipient of the miracle, also appears, Ben, in the National Catholic Register, one of the better-known Catholic newspapers in America. In the article I found, Vera Maria talks about her childhood doctor. Now, I'm assuming this story was relayed to her through her mother, considering she was 1 or 2 years old. But
Yeah.
the family doctor was Dr. C. Everett Koop. He told the parents of Vera Maria to prepare for her death when she was 1 year old after removing her bladder. It details Dr. Koop being amazed that after returning from visiting Padre Pio and conducting an X-ray, it was as if a new bladder had miraculously grown, a medical impossibility. So that sounds just fantastic.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
that. I'm not aware of. I mean, body parts don't just grow back. I was wondering whether there's any other instances of bladders growing. I mean,
I did do a
don't know
bit of
enough.
research on that. I think there is a rare chance that there might have been a second bladder which was missed.
yeah, right. So sort of a birth defect,
Yeah.
which turned out to be positive, right?
Yeah, so that is one possibility.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, Dr. Koop, the doctor mentioned, went on to become the US Surgeon General under Ronald Reagan,
Wow.
and he wrote many medical books and an autobiography. However, even in his autobiography, he doesn't mention this event, and he's never talked about it, or he never talked about it.
So he must find it factually challenging, maybe.
Yeah, I guess there's a number of potential conclusions to that. It either didn't happen, or he may well have not wanted to be associated with such a thing as a paranormal miracle. I mean, you know, we've talked about this on the podcast before. It might question his scientific credibility.
Yeah, certainly.
But I do think it is a little bit of a yellow flag for the skeptics out there. Do you not? That this guy who's witnessed this medical miracle, because you would devote your time to working out what had caused it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you would think, well, I'm glad she's okay, and move on, because there's possibly a scenario where you would end up just arguing the toss. Whatever medical explanation you came up with, there would always be a miraculous explanation to counter it.
Yeah.
And so you'd end up just in a constant argumentative loop, and maybe it's better to just get on with your career. I mean, if you become Surgeon General, then there's nowhere else to go, really. So that's pretty good. I would have liked to have... I wonder, he must have spoken in private about it.
You would think, wouldn't you?
Yeah, because the other option, of course, is that things were slightly misconstrued. She did have a chance of survival. It was just a game of numbers. But you don't want to you don't want to argue because she's got better. You know, that would be terrible bedside manner to kind of go, oh, you got better. Yeah, that was down to me. Yeah, it's a hard one. But I imagine the Vatican would have looked into it because, as you say, it tends to be a factual mission to look for these miracles, isn't it?
They're checked out.
These aren't people who would just blindly go, well, that must have been a miracle. There must have been a level of, well, how likely is this? Have we ever seen this in medicine before? To bring the evidence back, because otherwise they just go, oh, did he? Oh, right. Well, yeah, but that sounds right.
Tick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to go into too much detail about Pio and the stigmata. We all know stigmata being the appearance of bodily wounds mirroring the wounds of Jesus on the cross.
Yeah.
Mainly because we did a whole episode on stigmata where Pio featured heavily. So check that one out for more specifics if you're interested. But in summary, Padre Pio displayed stigmata on multiple occasions throughout his life. I mean, in reading up about him almost constantly, I would say, especially on his hands, often while he was holding services en masse, with those in attendance describing them just appearing. There are multiple images online if you do a Google search. I mean, they're as you would expect, they're quite bloody and gruesome, but you can do a Google search if you want. Now, skeptics have suggested that these wounds were potentially self-inflicted, perhaps even subconsciously by Pio. But as we heard earlier, the Vatican refers to them. Even two popes made direct reference to the phenomena. So, in some ways it feels officially the church recognises that they were a genuine miracle of sorts. But Pio was not the only modern-day saint that showed the signs of the stigmata. Should we look at another Italian-born saint, Gemma Galgani? I've taken this from miraclesofsaints.com. So Gemma was born in 1878. She claimed to start hearing Jesus' voice at the age of 7. Age 20, she became the recipient of a miracle from another saint, Gabriele Possenti, who appeared to her as a spirit and cured her spinal meningitis. In her autobiography, she describes how she first experienced the stigmata. Jesus appeared with all his wounds open, but blood no longer issued from these wounds, but flames of fire. In an instant, those flames came and touched my hands, feet, and heart. I felt I was dying and should have fallen had not my mum held me up. I remaining all the while covered with her mantle, and thus I remained for several hours. Afterwards, my mum kissed me on the forehead, then everything vanished, and I found myself kneeling on the ground, but still feeling intense pain in my hand, feet and heart. I got up to go to bed and saw blood flowing from those places where I felt the pain. I covered them up as best I could, and then with the help of my guardian angel got into bed. There's something about that image of fire coming where the blood should be that's really powerful, I thought, when I read it.
Yeah, that it reminds me somewhat of spontaneous human combustion stories that we spoke about, because, so in this instance, if I've understood that passage correctly, there's fire and then there's stigmata. Yeah,
so my understanding of it is, I'm not quite sure how, but in some way Jesus came to her. Fire was coming out of the places where the stigmata would normally be. Somehow that fire then touched her in the same places. She wakes up from the whole thing, and she's blood is coming out where the stigmata should be.
It's funny how all these things cross over, because that, to me, if you took the names out of it, that's saying alien abduction.
Oh, interesting. Right.
When people come back, so in a similar vein, there was a story I was reading the other day about a gentleman. He's American, and he keeps having these dreams that he is an old English jouster.
Right.
So, and he's wearing the knight's outfit, and in these dreams they're so powerful that he knows the name of the king. He knows what side he's fighting on. But every dream ends in the same way, that he has there's a pain at the back of his throat that wakes him up, because in his dream a sword has been thrust into his mouth.
Okay.
And it's cutting his throat, and he wakes up the same with the same thing every time. Eventually, this pain persists through the day, and he realizes he needs some help. So first off, he thinks it might be I've experienced this, teeth grinding, and he's like thinking maybe he's doing something with his mouth in the night.
Right.
Goes to the doctor, actually finds out he has got early stage throat cancer.
Right.
But it is very, very early stage, and it's very curable at that point. A simple operation, and he's fine. The doctor says, "Well, you're just experiencing these dreams because you're having this pain, and overnight that's how your brain is making these dreams happen." About 5 years later, and he's still absolutely fine. He has another nighttime experience, except this time he is taken by aliens, and it's a fully awake experience. And they say to him, "Oh, look, we need you to, as per is often the case with these things, they're going to get some samples from him, and
It's probing time."
yes, exactly. Yes, they're going to make some babies with him. But they also revealed to him that it was them who were giving him the dreams about the jousting,
Okay.
so that he would get his throat checked out.
Oh, wow.
And that's why it was that story that made me say that about what you were just saying there, with like Jesus coming forward with fire. It's not exactly the same, but you see where I'm going.
Well, there's also, I guess, the other parallel with it is the miracle of healing is such a big part of sainthood. So there are ties with that story of, okay, they're not healing directly, but they're almost putting things in someone's screen memory to go and check something out medically.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, also, like Padre Pio, St. Gemma Galgani was also seen to levitate. I think Pio, there's stories of him kind of arriving at his services by levitating, which could you imagine seeing that? You're going to be in, right?
That's insane.
Yeah.
He just glides in.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But for St. Gemma Galgani, on a certain day, Gemma was adoring Jesus on the crucifix while she was going about her household chores. I guess that's just looking at the crucifix on the wall, maybe. When all of a sudden, this is so weird, Jesus on the cross came alive, and with one hand beckoned Gemma to come to him. And then, in a moment of love and joy, Gemma was raised off the ground and taken to Jesus and embraced him in an ecstasy of love. So she's just doing her housework. Can you imagine that? And looking, I guess, at a crucifix on the wall, that suddenly comes alive and starts saying, "Come here." And she just levitates across the room.
Yeah. That's kind of crazy.
That is, isn't it?
And it's like a little Jesus on the cross.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's so much about that is like horror movie-esque, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Yeah.
Shall we move on to by location?
That's my favourite. Bilocation is my favourite of all of the saintly things.
Now, we've covered this phenomena before, and within a religious context even. We talked about tulpas in the Buddhist tradition. So many Buddhist monks have been reported to possess this power of appearing in two places at the same time. But it does also feature heavily in the lore of the Catholic saints. Back to miraclesofsaints.com, they describe it as a special gift of God where an individual can be in two places at once. God always uses this gift for acts of mercy or charity, or to be performed by the saint, in circumstances where it is physically impossible for the saint to be present under normal circumstances. So I guess it's almost doppelganger tulpa-esque, but I guess the warning is it's always got to be used for good in that sentence, right?
Yeah.
Once again, this is a paranormal power that Padre Pio seemed to possess. As in this story, published in April 2008's issue of Pray, Hope and Don't Worry newsletter. There's a lot to be thankful for in that title, isn't there?
Pray, Hope, Don't Worry.
So Ellie Hunt's family came from Padre Pio's hometown, and it had known Padre Pio from his childhood. They eventually emigrated from Italy to New York. In 1960, when Ellie was 31 years old, her grandfather, Jack Carafa, became gravely ill. Ellie and her parents lived close to his home in Flushing, New York, and during his grave illness, the family stayed by his side. When Jack eventually fell into a coma, they all knew that his life was soon passing. One day, while Ellie and her parents were at her grandfather's bedside, a stranger knocked at the door. They were surprised to see a Capuchin monk dressed in a dark brown habit, because there were no Capuchin monks in their parish, or in any other parish in the area for that matter. They were also surprised to see that he was wearing sandals without any socks, not from a fashion point of view, Ben, but because it was particularly cold that day and snow covered the ground. The monk said he had come to pray for her grandfather. Ellie was also a bit upset because she thought that the parish priest should have come to pray for her grandfather and not a complete stranger. However, she was soon impressed by the kindness and compassion of the young monk. When he went straight into her grandfather's bedroom and then he blessed Jack Carafa. He then told the family to pray the rosary, suggesting that they sit at Jack's side, praying the Hail Mary close to his ear, for he seemed to have the opinion that Jack was still able to hear. After the monk said that, Ellie was surprised to find that when she took her grandfather's hand in hers, she felt a response from a very slight squeeze from his hand. The young Capuchin monk then gave Ellie's grandfather the last sacraments. Then he blessed the family and bid them goodbye. As he walked out the front door, Ellie's father, James, noticed there was no car waiting for him outside. James watched him as he walked up the snow-covered street in his sandals until he disappeared into the darkness. Jack Carafa died that very night. He'd been in a coma for 9 days. After the unknown monk left, Ellie's father, James, became pale and appeared quite shaken. Ellie's mother, Lucy, asked him for the reason. "Don't you know who that was?" James replied. "It was Padre Pio. He came to give the last rites to your father, and he looked exactly like I remembered him when I used to deliver eggs to him in Petrelcino." That's where they lived. For Ellie's grandfather, Jack had been had been one of Padre Pio's spiritual sons, and through the special grace, God, Padre Pio, had come to comfort and encourage him and to administer the last sacrament of the church for his death, which was only hours away. Now, of course, Padre Pio was not in America, but in Italy at the time.
That's pretty cool. And he'd also changed how old he looked.
Yeah, which I thought was fascinating because I'd never heard that in terms of bilocation.
No, I thought you just got to bilocate as you were then.
So it's almost bilocation and some kind of time travel involved in that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird, isn't it?
Okay, that is quite an impressive... yeah, because it's like being visited by a ghost, but not.
Yeah. Well, it's that image as well of, him walking down the street in the snow in his sandals with no socks in his full monk outfit. It's so weird, isn't it?
Because I've read things, these sorts of stories where you would think, and I guess, well, I always thought that when an incident like that happens, he would be at home like meditating. But no, you can have a fully functional Padre Pio in another part of the world who's like giving a sermon or something.
Yeah,
so
at any age.
At any age, yes.
Because I guess there was something about him appearing in that age frame, whatever you call it, because it's something that the grandfather who was on his deathbed would recognise. And the family would recognise, I guess. Yeah.
That is remarkable. I love the way they pay so much attention to the sandals in the snow, like monks put on holy wellies or something. I mean, if you go to Manchester in the snow, there will be women wearing open-toed, high-heeled shoes in 5 foot of snow, definitely. So I'm not saying that it's the snow and the sandals which give it away.
Are you comparing this saintly act to those photos of Newcastle streets on Christmas with people just staggering around with no clothes on, vomiting around the clubs?
Well, I mean, maybe monks drink a lot of tonic wine, don't they?
That's true.
What's that? Buckfast?
Yeah, Buckfast.
I imagine Buckfast Abbey on New Year's Eve is very similar to the streets of Glasgow.
Yeah, I would imagine, yeah. Well, shall we move on to another paranormal phenomena associated with modern-day saints? Voices from the afterlife.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that sounds like another cool thing.
Let's talk about Saint Clelia Barbiere. I'm going to... Clelia
None of them are
Barbiere.
called, like, John Smith, are they?
No, they're not. She was one of the youngest saints ever. She was born in Bologna, Italy in 1847. She died aged 23 in 1870. When she was 20 years old, she inspired and led a small group of other young women dedicated to aiding the sick and providing all forms of charitable assistance. She secured, she really kind of worked hard to get it, but she secured a small house near a local church with her aspiration that even the poorest could join her community. While setting this up in 1867, she became very ill with tuberculosis, which sadly led to her death at such a young age, at 23. I think what also didn't help, Ben, when she was examined by doctors, they discovered she was wearing a penitential chain. So this is, a penance. As a penance, it was a metal chain with spikes on it wrapped around her body 3 times. Don't do that.
No. That's used... we see that in the Angels and Demons film with Dan Brown,
Yeah. Well, in terms of miracles associated with Clelia, there were many occasions, this is really interesting, when the community she helped set up was out of food. They were really just, really on the breadline. She would then lead everyone in prayer, and on a number of occasions, the doorbell would ring with people coming to provide food. On one occasion, the community had been donated a number of apples. She separated the apples into 3 piles and said to their donor, "I will keep these you picked in your orchard and those you found on the ground, but I cannot accept this 3rd group because you did not come by them honestly." The woman who donated the apples, then looking shocked, confessed that the pile of apples was taken from someone's orchard without their permission.
Oh.
It's almost a double miracle there. Pray, food comes. But she also knew that, some of these apples were not obtained in an honest way, so wouldn't accept them.
She went on to say, "Have you got anything other than apples?"
Yeah, have you got any pears?
You haven't got, like, a sandwich. I mean... Yeah, okay. That makes... that's quite good. That's quite annoying though. It's quite an annoying way of saying it. I'll have those 2, but you can take those back. You nicked them, didn't you?
Now, obviously, that is not what I promised of some kind of communication from the dead. That's what I'm going to come on to.
It's just apple theft.
Yeah, that's just apple. That was your starter. Perhaps the most paranormal miracle associated with her happened after her death. This is just amazing. It took place on the evening of July 13th, 1871, exactly 1 year after she died. Her sisters were praying for her in a local chapel. The sisters described what happened that evening, so these are their words. "Suddenly there was the sound of a high-pitched, harmonious and heavenly voice that accompanied the singing in the choir. At times it sang solo. At other times it harmonised with us in the choir." This is really interesting. "Moving from left to right."
Keen on her stereo?
Yeah. "Sometimes it passed close by the ears of one or other of the sisters. The joy which it brought filled our hearts with a happiness impossible to put into words. This wasn't of this world. We lived that day in paradise. From time to time, one had to leave the room. The emotion that we experienced was so strong that it left you breathless until one had to call out, 'Enough, dear Lord, enough.' So it was so overwhelming, some of them had to leave and then come back, which, yeah. This miraculous event dismissed all thoughts of sleep. Instead, since the Blessed Sacrament was not then received in their chapel, the chapel then closed, they decided to pass the night adoring the Blessed Sacrament in a nearby church. They again declared, but how great was our surprise when we realised that the voice had followed us and accompanied us as we began our prayers. Clelia's voice prayed with them until dawn. It was precisely 1 year after the anniversary of her death. Since that day, she has never left them, joining them in the most diverse sounding surroundings and conditions. There were only 10 girls who lived in the community at the time of her death. After the rule of order was approved by the Vatican, more members joined the community, many being inspired by the voice of the Holy Foundress. Just that idea of this voice kind of joining the choir and in harmony and then doing a solo and then coming in, moving from right to left across the choir. Fascinating.
And they're convinced it was her?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
That is interesting. I mean, yeah, it's more than an EVP.
Yeah.
But again, these things are always fine lines because there are plenty of stories about hearing voices in buildings, and churches are no exception.
Yeah.
We only consider it saintly when there are other aspects to them to add on to it. There seems to be no recognition that there's anything particularly unusual or powerful about a voice that is heard in a church. I suppose it's unusual, but not necessarily powerful. But after their death, I suppose I have this, like, some of it doesn't make sense. Like, when we talk about the voices of ghosts in buildings, we sometimes refer to them as being trapped there and they haven't moved on to the light. Now, this sounds like, I suppose it might be a saintly force that she's able to move back and to between wherever she's gone and there. But if it was just a haunting, you'd say she was trapped.
Yeah. As you were speaking, I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, you're interesting the locations that this happened. It started me thinking about infrasound as well as a possible reason for this, the actual layout of a church or whatever, creating plus the almost a bit of euphoria at being there and almost hysteria at being there. You could see how that might take hold.
Yeah, you could.
I'm not saying that's what happened, but it's interesting thought.
I'd also want to hear it on, as you say about the infrasound, I'd want to hear it on tape.
I guess the argument against infrasound is they moved to 2 churches, so unless both of them had the same, but again, the mass hysteria could have just taken hold by then. Couldn't it? Well, St. Clelia Barbieri, I've really picked bad names today, for many years was the youngest of the modern day saints, but that title was recently taken by someone else. An example of a 21st century saint whose miracles have taken the church into the internet age. I'm talking about Carlos Acutis. This is from the Guardian newspaper from September this year. It's written by Kate Connolly and Angela Gufidi. I can't get names today. The title was Carlos Acutis, God's influencer who died aged 15, declared a saint by Pope Leo. The article goes on to say, a London-born Italian teenage computer whiz who died in 2006, aged 15, has been declared the Catholic Church's first millennial saint during an open-air mass in a packed St. Peter's Square. Carlo Acutis, who died of leukemia, built multilingual websites to spread Catholic teaching, later earning him the nickname God's influencer. He was canonised by Pope Leo XIV, alongside Giorgio Frassati, another young Catholic activist who died a century ago. An hour before the Mass, St. Peter's Square had filled with tens of thousands of pilgrims from around the world, many of them millennial Italians and Americans, as Acutis families looked on. A crowd numbering an estimated 80,000 braved sweltering heat, and many were forced to spill out into the boulevards next to the square, with witnesses describing the atmosphere as joyous and party-like. The greatest risk in life is to waste it outside of God's plan, Leo said in the homily, saying Acutis and Frassati had made masterpieces of their lives by dedicating them to God. The new saints are an invitation to us all, especially young people, not to squander our lives, but to direct them upwards, he said. Both ceremonies had been scheduled for earlier this year, but were postponed after the death of Pope Francis, who had fervently pushed Acutis' sainthood case forward to attract young Catholics to the faith. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is the quickest turnaround of a saint.
I believe that to be the case as well. I remember the news reports, yeah.
So over the past year, more than 1 million people have flocked to the central Italian town of Assisi, where Acutis' body, this is a bit weird, covered in a wax mould, and his likeness, and dressed in his blue tracksuit top, jeans and trainers, is on view behind a glass panel case in St. Maria Maggiore Church. This is weird as well. His heart is in a gold casket in the town's Safrafino Cathedral, while pieces of tissue from his pericardium, the membrane enclosing the heart, have toured the world in the lead up to his canonisation.
Yeah, it's a bit odd.
A bronze life-size statue of him is also displayed in the town. His mother, Antonia Salzano, who also travelled across the globe delivering speeches to Catholic communities about her son's life, bringing strands of her son's hair as gifts. She was present at the canonisation mass with her family, including Carlo's 2 teenage siblings who were born after his death. Salzo told The Guardian the family was not particularly religious, but her son showed a deep devotion to the Catholic faith from a young age. He would go to Mass and do the rosary each day, she said, adding that he was a child who could not be indifferent to sorrow. We lived in the centre of Milan in a building surrounded by beggars. He wanted to help them, speak to them, bring them food and blankets. She added that Acutis was otherwise an average child, hanging out with friends or playing sport. Carlo was an internet geek, but he had the temperance to use the technology for good and was not exploited by it, she said. Acutis was born on the 3rd of May 1991 in London to a wealthy but not particularly observant Catholic family. They moved back to Milan soon after he was born. Acutis was particularly interested in computer science and devoured college-level books on programming even as a youngster. A skillful coder, his WizKid reputation started to grow when he created websites for Catholic organisations, including one that listed miracles, which I've had a look at, which is quite interesting, earning him the moniker the Cyber Apostle. He also enjoyed playing on his PlayStation, although he limited his use to an hour a week. That is disciplined, isn't it? Which apparently the Catholic Church liked quite a lot.
Is that his miracle?
No. In October 2006, age 15, he fell ill with what was quickly diagnosed as acute leukemia. Within days, he was dead. He was entombed in Assisi, known for its association with another popular saint, St. Francis. His mother claims it was around this time of his funeral that he started to work his miracles, and last year Francis credited Acutis with 2. The first involved the recovery of a boy in Brazil from a rare congenital disease affecting his pancreas. The second was helping a student in Florence with bleeding of the brain from a head trauma, and whose mother had prayed at Acutis' tomb in Assisi. The speed in which Acutis has been canonised shows how the Church is keen to attract more young people. Canonisation usually follows a long and detailed process involving a meticulous investigation by the Vatican and outside specialists who determine the veracity of miracles attributed to the individual. Acutis' beatification, the stage before canonisation, was carried out by Pope Francis in 2020. So that's from the Guardian newspaper. So I think there are 2 examples. One where his mother prayed for someone, a kid who was dying at the tomb of the newly anointed saint, and that person recovered, and one where the mother of a child went and prayed and their child was cured.
But both of those were after his death, were they not?
They were, yeah.
So he didn't perform any miracles while he was alive?
No, but I think, I talked earlier about the kind of martyrdom stage. I think because of his work on spreading the word via the internet, I did wonder if there is I don't want to, demean him becoming a saint, but I do wonder if there is some almost political.
That's
politics
exactly
at
where
work
I was
of
going to go with this. Yeah.
Millennial saints, internet, hitting a new thing. He's obviously, built up a following. Yeah, God's influencer. It says it all, doesn't it? Right.
Yeah. But to be honest, after what we've heard, unless you're floating into a church, I don't want to know about it.
Yeah. Got to up your game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, by way of conclusion, Ben, I want to go back to how I started this episode. So whether or not you believe...
Floating 5 feet above the ground.
Yeah, can you not see me? Whether or not you believe these modern-day saints really perform miracles or not, I think the really interesting part for me is this idea that supernatural miracles are not only still mentioned officially by the Vatican and the Church, they are a requirement in many cases to achieving sainthood. And that's not just some historical hangover. Miracles are mentioned in relation to someone who's made a saint this year. Now, we can argue they're not particularly great miracles or not, but I struggle to think of any other official organisations that recognise the paranormal in that way.
They don't have it as a pass grade, if you like, to achieve something. I mean, there are places that recognise the paranormal, but they report upon it, like a MUFON or something like that. But this is pulling those people in. But the thing that I still struggle with is this notion of, because the Catholic Church personifies it really, good paranormal and bad paranormal. Like I was telling you the story, and we'll do it as a whole episode at some point because it deserves more than just an input into a conversation. But the woman who became the Mother Superior, who she spent all of her life doing all of these things, healing, living in a cell for 40 days without food, floating around. She was the one where she would go into a trance and float, and the other nuns would invite people, paying people to come in and see her, which is a little distasteful. And she gets to the end of her life and goes, actually, it was all the demon. I've been possessed by a demon all my life.
Right.
And the demon comes out. And yet she had convinced everybody going through that she was channeling God. And that's why I was saying, like, how do you know whether you're being levitated by a demon or something from a deity, or whether or whether it's an alien? I find that sort of there's a conflict there, and again, there's also a conflict, like I said, in the disembodied voices. If a saint is able to have a disembodied voice in a church, then the answer to why do we hear disembodied voices in other buildings cannot simply be, it's a trapped spirit. So it unlocks a whole load of additional questions, and I don't doubt you can answer some of them theologically, but actually practically, when it comes to discussing the paranormal in an open-minded way, you end up, my mind goes to trickster spirits, and then invariably to physics theories and all sorts of the nature of the universe quickly opens up before your eyes. But still, let's not detract from the fact that you've got a patron saint of comedy and coffee and a small tiny Jesus made someone float through a church. That's fantastic.
I wonder, in my research of it, I did wonder. I haven't done a kind of statistical analysis of this, so this is just a feeling. I did wonder if this idea of the miracle or the paranormal part of it that the church is maybe backing away from it a little bit. You know? The focus seems to be on the newer saints, on martyrdom, what they've done to help the world, rather than this paranormal angle. It'll be interesting to see if they ever drop that going forward. The need for a miracle. I'm not. I don't think they're going to say no. It was. It was never a thing. I just think they might just go, well, we don't need miracles anymore, let alone two of them.
Yeah, you see, that's also a difficult conversation to have, because does the age of the miracle disappear with the invention of the camera phone? You know, that there's something uncomfortably inextricable about those two things. I mean, it's a good question, isn't it? Is there less miracles now we've got more recording devices? 100 years ago, I saw her levitate through the church. I levitated through the church. Prove me wrong. These days, I levitated through the church. There were 30 people, and not one of them had an iPhone. I don't know.
I don't think we're ever going to make it to the patron saints of podcasting, are we?
Are there such a thing? There must be.
I don't think yet.
The patron saint of an Audacity edit.
Yeah.
Well, if you would like to be our patron saint,
nice.
patreon.com/TQMpod. All the episodes early, ad-free, special only for Patreons episodes every week. Access to the Discord. Now, for people, I know people have been using the Discord. I have been locked out because I can't prove my age. I'm having to contact. So there's this age verification on it now, and it won't accept my face or my driving license. So
I've been doing a bit of posting. Well, a bit of responding. I don't know about posting.
Thank you. Well, I do apologise. I know Steph has been urgently sending me stuff going, look at this, look at this. I tried last night. I couldn't get in. I'm going to have to try again tomorrow. But I did put in an appeal because I didn't recognise my driving licence. But that is all that you get for your very small amount of less than a £5 a month.
Excellent. Well, look, we will be back next week. I think next week's episode, it's all a bit kind of... we don't know what we're going to be doing next week, actually.
Well, the next thing you're going to hear will either be an episode from me or a Halloween episode.
Yeah.
One of the two.
One of the two. Okay, we'll see you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Are you the quantum mechanics?